Hey guys, this is Earpugs, and in this video I'm going to be going over all of the basics for TBC and Wrath Arena. If you are brand new to Arena and kinda want to get your feet wet or just see what should I do, what should I focus on, this is for you and should help a lot. What is Arena? So Arena is simply a team of usually 2 or 3 players against another team of 2 or 3 players with only one objective, which is to kill the other team. In this video, I'm going to be explaining the best ways and how you could get a major upper hand as opposed to just doing a bunch of arenas and then learning after hundreds and hundreds of losses, oh, I need to do this, etc. There are 3 staples of Arena that will give you more wins than anything else if you pay attention to them, and they are damage, crowd control, or CC, and positioning. These 3 things are absolutely paramount and will exist in the game from 1400 all the way to rank 1, so you don't want to overlook these. The first thing we're going to be talking about is CC, or crowd control. This is the most important thing to get down first because everything builds off of it down the line. Every class in World of Warcraft has a version of CC, whether it be a stun, or a polymorph, or a fear. They all will react differently when used on another character, but at its core, it simply disables you from playing your own character. Certain CCs can break if you do damage to the target while they are in that form. Certain ones cannot either. For example, a stun from a rogue, like a kidney shot, you could do as much damage as possible to the character who has the kidney shot on them, and they will not break no matter what, whereas a person who is polymorphed will break with a single point of damage. If you look to the top right of your screen and you see the icon, it will tell you the effect that you're under by hovering over it with your mouse, and it will also have an outline of the color. For example, the first one is going to be blue. That is a magical CC, the most common in the game, and therefore it's the most important to know. To remove a negative magical effect from a friendly target, you're going to need to be either a priest, or a paladin, or a fell hunter. Just kidding, you can't play as a fell hunter, you have to be a warlock. I'm going to show you a clip really quick. It's just a mage polymorphing a target that is friendly. I am a priest, and I will now dispel that target with the push of a button. As you can see, it's an instant cast, it costs mana, and it will remove it. Keep in mind, if there is a bunch of debuffs that are all magical on your friendly target, it will actually do it at random, and you may not dispel the polymorph on the first one. You need to keep hitting the key until it's removed. On the other hand, you can remove a positive magical effect from an enemy, making them easier to kill. For example, you can remove Power Word Fortitude, giving them less stamina, or removing a healing over time effect like Rejuvenation, which completely negates that effect, and in essence does damage because they're not going to be receiving the heals they would have previously. There are 5 classes in the game who can do this, and there are 3 of them that you will see do this often, which is a priest with Dispel Magic, a shaman with Purge, and a mage with Spell Steal. All of these abilities don't have a cooldown, so if the user wishes, they can simply target the person they're trying to kill and spam the ability until there's no magical buffs or hots left on the target, making them extremely easy to kill. And I want to stress this because purging, or cleaning as it's referred to, is so important in Arena, and it's overlooked constantly by new players because it doesn't actually do damage instantly, but it allows you to set up for a kill. And the biggest benefit is that when the person you're trying to kill doesn't have any heals on them or buffs of any kind, you're going to force them to either play defensive, line of sight, or go and pop their cooldowns defensively, and all 3 of those are huge for your team because it generates pressure. The last 2 classes who can purge in this game are a hunter with Arcane Shot at max rank in the Burning Crusade and Trank Shot in Wrath. Also, a Warlock's pet, which is a Fell Hunter with Devour Magic. One thing to keep in mind, Warlocks, if you're using Devour Magic offensively, it's an 8-second cooldown, so you may not have it for your teammate if they get CC'd. Very situational, just a little side note. Moving right along, the next thing we're going to be talking about is physical CC. This is the second most common CC that you're going to see in Arena and PvP. Very common to see from melees, usually stuns or fear from a warrior, and many other forms. The interesting thing about physical CC is that you can't actually dispel it. There is no dispel magic button or remove poison, etc., etc. The only way you can get physical CC off is with Hand of Protection from a Paladin, which is a long cooldown, so you're going to want to be careful using it. Or with Ice Block as a mage. The only way you can get out of a physical CC is with a Trinket if you don't have any of those abilities I just mentioned. And this is actually your most important cooldown, so I just want to talk about that really quickly. In World of Warcraft Arena, you have a Medallion of the Alliance or a Medallion of the Horde. And when you use this trinket, because it's an on-use trinket with a 2-minute cooldown, it will remove all forms of CC or crowd control that are on you. Keep in mind, it will not remove silences. Why is that? I don't know, but that is true. So if you're silenced and you trinket, you're still silenced and you're dead without a trinket now. If you have also been kicked, like with Counterspell or Pummel, it won't remove that as well. On top of Purging, trinkets are so poorly used by new players, and if you can pay attention to when you need to trinket and what you need to trinket, that will win you so many games, because holding your trinket until you absolutely need it is vital. There's one class that I want to specify you need to be very careful with fighting against, and that is a rogue. If you waste your trinket on a rogue, in most situations, they're going to use their ability called Blind on you in an arena. Blind is a 10-second disorient that's physical, so you cannot dispel it as almost every comp in the game, except for the two I mentioned previously. And on top of Blind being so bad because it's 10 seconds of not being able to play, almost always you're going to get sapped out of it, which is an additional 10 seconds of not being able to play the game. So that makes it 20 seconds without any DRs and any overlaps. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is DRs. That's something that's super important to learn about. While that's kind of a higher rating thing that you'll learn about down the line, I'm just going to touch on it really quick. A DR is a diminishing return. All that means is when you use a CC on somebody, if you reuse that same CC, it's going to cut the time in half. So if you were to polymorph somebody for 10 seconds, then polymorph them again when that was over, your second polymorph is going to be half the time, and then you can do it one more time, which would be 2.5 seconds. Once the third one has happened, you are now immune to that CC for 18 seconds. There is a way you can actually track the DRs in this game, and all you would need is an add-on called Gladius. It only works in Arena, but it's very helpful. If you look to the right of the red health bar down there, that's the target that we're currently hitting with abilities. It will show you the DRs with an icon of the ability and then a timer. This makes it super easy to keep track of what CC you have put on the target. That way you don't overlap or accidentally reuse a CC and have it be a short duration when you wanted the full duration. I will be making a video down the line about DRs specifically because they're so important once you get the basics down. It is, in my opinion, the next step of things to learn because then you're working on building class compositions and for arena comps and threes and all different kinds of things like that. So I will be covering it with a future video, but that's all I'm going to talk about in this one because this is rudimentary basics. The last two things we're going to be talking about when it comes to CC are curses and poisons. These you won't see as much as physical and magic, but they're definitely in the game and you need to know what they are and how to counter them. The first one we're going to start with is a poison. Poisons are predominantly used by rogues, and they are actually very deadly if you don't know how to play around them or what they do. The two most common poisons you're going to see in Arena from a rogue is crippling poison and wound poison. Wound poison gives you a 50% healing reduction, just like Mortal Strike or Aimed Shot, and Crippling Poison is a 70% slow, 7-0. So you're basically crawling if somebody shivs you with Crippling Poison. So it's important to know how to get around this. There are 3 classes in the game that can remove poisons, and they are a Druid with Abolish Poison, a Paladin with Cleanse, and a Shaman with Cure Poison or Poison Cleansing Totem. All of these abilities are instant casts and work extremely similarly to Dispel Magic, so you get the idea with that. The last CC is a quick one, and it's called a Curse. In TBC, it's actually used only by Warlocks, but in Wrath, Shamans get Hex, which is a Curse. So for TBC, Curse of Tongues is the biggest one you're going to see. It simply makes it so your caster takes a lot longer to cast his ability, making it a lot easier to kick him or punish him, etc. They also have Curse of the Elements, which will reduce your resistances to things, and that makes it a lot easier to do damage. There are only 2 classes in the Burning Crusade who can remove curses, and they are a Druid and a Mage. The ability works just the same as Dispel, instant cast, costs mana, and keep in mind, once you get to Wrath of the Lich King, now Resto Shamans have Decurse as well. That pretty much covers almost all of CC. It's a pretty deep topic, so I tried to cover all the bases. Obviously, I can't go over every single ability in the game. And now we're moving on to positioning. Knowing where you are in an arena is actually incredibly important as well. There is 2 ways you can actually CC your own healer, and they are called line of sighting, which is when you go behind a pillar and make it so your healer can't heal you, or if you go out of range. In World of Warcraft, healers have a 40-yard range. That is how far they can heal at a maximum distance. So if you run further than that range, they literally have no way to heal you, regardless of line of sight or anything. So that's another thing to keep in mind. While this part sounds extremely basic and like how could you be so stupid, you'll find that so many things are going on in an arena, especially in 3v3, that sometimes you forget about positioning and you don't know where your healer is. So you can often use a thing called marks, which you may have seen in raiding, like the square or other ones, etc., to put over your teammates, and that way you know where your teammates are at all times. Positioning can either help you or hurt you, depending on the situation. I'll just give you some quick tips as general statements because I can't go class by class and every single comp because that would literally take me hours. If you are a healer, you generally want to avoid the enemy team's melee classes because if you're near them, they can very easily switch to you, or if you're casting, they can even off-kick you, which is very, very bad. If you are a ranged DPS, generally speaking, you want to stay relatively as far away as you can from the enemy melees and staying in line of sight of your own healer, so that way you take as least damage as possible but do as much damage as possible. And if you are a melee DPS, you want to do as much damage as possible, which requires you to go at the enemy, but you need to be very aware of where your healer is and also your own health bar. So if you're full health and you have a lot of pressure, you can line of sight your healer usually. But if you're really low health and you make the executive decision to run behind a pillar and line of sight your healer, then this will be you.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
The final topic is damage, and this one is really easy to understand because you've done this throughout leveling all the way to max level, you know how to do damage to kill things, etc. The only thing that you should focus on with damage is making sure that you utilize what are called cooldowns, which is like Recklessness for a warrior or Bloodlust from a shaman, etc. The purpose of them is to make you do more damage, and the way you can make the whole puzzle come together to get kills in Arena is you line up your CC on the healer, and then you pop your cooldowns on the DPS you're killing, and if you have that combo, that at the bare minimum will get you decent rating as long as you can do that correctly. And that concludes everything. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. This is my first guide I've ever made, so I hope it was helpful in any way. I will be making more in-depth content in the future, so please subscribe if you're interested in that. Also, once TBC Classic does come out, I will be making a ton of content in relation to that, pretty much everything around PvP and Arena. Liking the video helps me immensely, and it's the biggest thank you you can give to me. WoW Arena is too complex to cover everything in a single video, but I did my best. So if there was anything that I missed in this video, feel free to drop a comment below, or any questions that you have, I will reply to every question. Once again, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in future videos.